Great, let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the GFAN AP Update webinar number 4. And thank you all for taking the time to join us today. My name is Jennifer Ho, and I'll be your moderator today. We're delighted to have all of you here as we come together first to update partners about the key discussion points from the GFAN Annual Meeting in Ottawa, Canada, early last month, and especially implication for the upcoming global fund replenishment and potential impacts on community and civil society-led work here in our region. And second, about key discussion points from the recently concluded 53rd Global Fund Board meeting. In particularly the resource mobilization session, there are some critical information that we think it's very important for us to share with partners at this point already. So thank you all for being here. Before we start, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping announcements and provide you an overview of the agenda to ensure a smooth and engaging session. Please note that the session is held in English. Please turn off your video and mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If you're experiencing slow bandwidth, please close any unnecessary programs and/or applications on your device. Please do feel free to introduce yourself and also share your questions, comments, reactions in the chat box as we go through the session. And do note that this session is being recorded and the recording will be made available on our social media channels after the event. And finally, GFAN AP is committed to maintaining an inclusive and safe space for everyone. Harassment or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated, and participants engaging in such actions may be removed without prior notice. Next on the agenda, you will see that there are two main topics of discussions today. There will be also some time for Q&A from the participants. So again, do feel free to drop your questions and reflection in the chat box. Thank you all for helping to create a respectful and engaging space today. And now, without further ado, I'd like to invite Quentin Patrou from GFAN Research and Advocacy Lead to share some key discussion points from the GFAN Annual Meeting. And he will be followed by our colleagues from GFAN Africa and Asia Pacific, who were also there at the meeting with us. So over to you first, Quentin. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jen. Sorry, I muted myself by mistake. Hi, everyone. I'm working on very little sleep, so if I don't make much sense, you can blame my child. So I'm here to tell you about some of the key points that we discussed in Ottawa for the GFAN Global Annual Meeting. Some of these points are like more or less out of date, and I'll like supplement them with reflections from the board meeting, but try as much as possible not to overlap too much with the next presenters discussing the board meeting directly. So the first what was center of mind while we were in Ottawa was, of course, the state of play for HIV, TB, and malaria and the impact of the US freeze and cuts to their bilateral programs. I think that's something that was discussed perhaps in more depth during the board, because we had by then a better sense of the scale and the numbers. But I think the sense that I want everyone to catch is that the impact of the freeze and of the cuts is similar in size and in breadth to the shock of COVID-19. The difference, of course, being that this time around, it's not like a confluence of many factors, including a new virus. It's just one guy in one election. So that had, beyond the impact on epidemiology and other three diseases, the situation in the US and the overall global outlook is pretty grim. That for two reasons. So we know what is happening in the US. There's two components to this. One is that bilateral aid has been like first froze, then cut, then in some cases decut and defroze. It's very confusing. It's very unclear how many programs have actually restarted. But there's also the specter of further cuts down the line. And we've seen in the past few weeks a first budget proposal from the president, which is not indicative and will need to go through Congress, but still get a sense of like the direction of travel with regard to that administration. So there's challenges for the current programs, there's challenging for upcoming programs. The US is a big funder. In addition to that, we have cuts across a lot of other big donor markets, in particular the UK and France, which have announced large cuts to their ODA budgets, though not on this, though aren't coming with the same freeze and ensuring chaos as in the US case. That has implicated we heard really try to run the same campaign as we did in 2022. In particular, because certain words, certain worldviews have become triggering for the U.S. administration, and so it's challenging to be as public and as loud as we are used to be. And that's very much what is reflected by the Secretariat with regard to their advocacy campaign. It's a lot more quiet, it's a lot less public, it's a lot less press, a lot more bilateral meetings with decision makers. And they have encouraged civil society actors to adopt a similar approach. Though to be clear, that is also challenged by a number of advocates who feel that being quiet isn't getting us anywhere either. So we might as well be loud and be true to our principles and to our and to our values. In terms of other types of impact, so there's a co-hosting arrangement for the replenishment campaign this time around by the UK and South Africa. It's the first time we have two hosts, and the first time that one of the hosts of a replenishment campaign is a developing country, in that case, South Africa. But that presents a number of challenges for two main reasons. The first one is that in the UK very much doesn't want to be too visible and too public with their work around global fund replenishment because of domestic concerns and how they want to be perceived domestically. And South Africa is engaged, well, has been attacked like repeatedly publicly by the US for a number of their policies. And so we have a situation where the two co-hosts, for different reasons, are perhaps not as effective and as engaged as they could have been in the past. One of the outcomes is that we are looking at a very different replenishment campaign, and in particular in Minot and in a replenishment conference. It's unclear. But the fact that there has been no confirmation heard at any point from people in the Secretariat that they would be one might indicate that there might not be one. Or at least not an event that is similar to those we've seen in the past with very high level representation from all major donors, etc., etc. Other topics of discussions during the meeting, we talked a lot about various moments and opportunities for engagement. The two big global events coming up are WHA, which is starting in a couple of days in Geneva, but WHA is not typically a space where global fund is extremely present, and it's a very crowded space. It's a crowded space also because the WHO has been like attacked very directly by the US as well, and so how much space you want to take in that kind of conference as a global fund is a difficult issue to balance. There's a financing for development conference. It's the fourth of those things taking place in Spain over the summer at the end of June, beginning of July. This was meant to be a fairly technical conference, very UN-centric, and until recently, there was a sense that it would not be a particularly useful venue for advocacy. It seems to have since changed, and a number of leaders, a number of countries are planning on sending high-level representation in Spain. That includes in particular France, apparently. And so that conference in Seville is now becoming perhaps an opportunity for engagement that one should consider attending. In the good news, there's a couple of them, not a lot, is that the context in Asia is largely positive. There are a number of concerns in Japan with regard to funding, but I'm sure we can hear some of the other presenters discussing that in more length. But overall, Japan is one of the more reliable partners of the Global Fund and global health more broadly. Korea, as despite its political troubles, has repeatedly reasserted its commitment to development, to rising ODA levels, and to taking more of a leading role and leading place in global health, which is encouraging. With that in mind, there's the TCAT conference in August, which we probably will hear more about later, is probably a key moment of advocacy in the Asia Pacific. In terms of very pragmatic next steps coming out of that GFAN meeting, two key takeaways were that a lot of people have been doing replenishment work for a very long time, but there's also a lot of newcomers, and this particular campaign is especially confusing in many regards. And so we'll be working in the next couple of weeks to build new, perhaps more advocacy 101 tools to help onboard people that have less experience with general global fund campaigning, but also help like old hands better understand some of the challenges and the strategic approaches for this campaign. We're also working on diversifying the type of messaging we're providing to our network members. Different countries now, different decision makers in different countries react and are sensitive to very different messaging, and so we try to make sure that we have on offer talking points for all sorts of situations. And I think I'm more or less on time, so I will stop here.
Great, thank you so much, Quentin. That was really great overview, and you have hit some of the key points. And again, we're hoping to supplement, as you say, some of the discussion points with some of the, what just happened at the board meeting last week as well, because things are evolving and changing so fast these days. I should turn on my video. Hi, everyone. So thank you for that. Then following Quentin's overview, I also would like to invite additional input from our colleagues who were also there at the GFAN meeting with us. First, I'd like to invite Karti Manikarutu from GFAN Africa, who is the communication lead for GFAN Africa. Karti, are you with us? She's muted.
Sorry, hi, my connection is a little spotty, it's freezing, so hopefully you can hear me. Thanks for having me here. So GFAN Africa, we are moving ahead with the campaign. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
Good. Sorry about that. Yeah, we're moving ahead with the campaign. Since meeting everyone in Ottawa, it was great to connect and collaborate. Since the meeting, I think our biggest moment has been World Malaria Day. During World Malaria Day, we had a few letters as well as a joint statement that GFAN AP was also signing on to. Our partner Impact Santé Afrique launched a parliamentary platform called COPEMA for malaria champions. And in future, we will be also activating that parliamentary platform for Global Fund advocacy. So parliamentary engagement is a big part of our focus this month and next month. Last week, we had a meeting with the Parliamentary Task Force on Domestic Resource Mobilization, which includes parliamentarians from 9 countries in Africa. And we had a Global Fund briefing with them about the aid replenishment and some of our civil society advocacy asks. And before the end of this month, we will be having a broader briefing, including this task force, including COPEMA, the malaria champions, and the TB caucus in Africa for a broader parliamentary session, sharing some of the One World, One Fight messaging, as well as the Global Fund Secretariat's own presentation about the replenishment. There's also some more bilateral parliamentary engagement going on. Last week, we had parliamentarians from Italy visiting Kenya and meeting with senators in Kenya, speaking about the impact of the Global Fund. So we're expecting more of that work, coordinating that with few partners in the next few months. Especially the UK, since the UK and South Africa are co-hosting the replenishment. We're working closely with partners in the UK to have a civil society caucus between the UK civil society and the South African civil society. So there are a few initial meetings planned. There was one this week, and it will be an ongoing event in the next few weeks. And also in South Africa, the C20 work has begun. It's officially launched, and there is a working group called Equitable Health for All, which Waki Health is co-hosting. And as part of this working group, we are definitely integrating Global Fund messaging and working closely with South African civil society to make sure that Global Fund replenishment is prioritized in that communication and advocacy work. Also in June, I guess I would just say that we are also working on a youth forum, having a space specifically for young advocates to engage on the Global Fund and be a part of that advocacy work. So I think those are our highlights for this month, next month, and the coming future. And if there's anything else specific that you would like me to talk about, happy to do so.
Great.
Thanks, Jen.
So much, Karthi. That was really helpful. And I think that the work around the parliamentarian is also taking place around our region as well. We also been in conversation with TB Caucus, Global TB Caucus, to see how we can better engage the MPs as well. So it's great to see the synergy around that. So thank you for that. So then let me then move on next to inviting the other colleagues who were also at the GFAN meeting to share some updates or reflections or work that they're doing relating to the replenishment since the meeting. I'd like to first invite Annie Harnasari from Indonesia, who is also a GFAN speaker as well. Annie, is that correct? Am I?
Yes.
No. Yes. Okay, great. Over to you, Annie. Share with us, especially this really wonderful project that you're involved with. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Can you help me to share the slides, Kent? So yeah, I will. Hello, everybody. I'm in Ottawa also in that time. So that time we have like a breakout group, and I joined the like fabric activation. The idea is for the aid replenishment is to like elevate the inspirational community stories. So by emphasizing the universal truth from the human resilience and our collective the potential. So this is about how to bring the story to life through the fresh creative lens, like we produce like a series of story and patterns that cover the powerful final platform for the aid replenishment. It's like we have already shown that it's inspired by the African fabric. So it's like the Global Fund for the aid replenishment. They choose 4 countries to make the story about the story of the like the survivor in the country. Like from South Africa they have Sibu, and also from Nigeria they have Noradin, and also Ivan from Bolivia, and Indonesia is representing by me. So this is the fabric that already produced by one of the designer from the Indonesia. Can you next slide? Yeah, this is the transformation. So this is the story about me. I don't know, you can read it or no. This is like a whole story that I start like seeking medication, and then like doing the treatment, and then I become pregnant in that treatment, and then finally to become advocate. So the designer is like inspired by my story, and they making the designer just for me. Next slide. Yeah, so this is the design, the unique design that produced to cover my story. So you can see that this is the element. It's like this is, you can see the mother and the child is like representing me in that time when I have MDR-TB, and then this is my child. If you see the little thing here, the white thing, and also the dot is like this is when I become the diagnose, and this is surrounding by pill every day that I'm taking. And then when you see this, like the broken glass, this is my story when they put me when I my broke my water broke, so they put me in the isolation room that is like the glass room that where everybody can see me that time. And yeah, that time is like the most embarrassing moment. So this is the broken glass. So the broken glass is show that I already passed that moment, and now I it's like I doing something to advocate that I don't want that anybody have experience just like I did before. I experienced before. So this is also the yellow flower, because in also we have activity like income generating. We doing some eco print batik also to produce something material and fabric also. The money come from there. We give that to buy nutrition for the people still on treatment. So this is all about my story, the pattern. And next, that is like the big. So the plan is this pattern will make a hijab, like a shawl, maybe scarf. So I will wear this when the Global Fund team will come to make a video for me in June. So this is the pattern for the scarf. Next. Yeah, this is what coming. We will make the film in June, and then for that pattern, we will also produce for the postcard and also for pocket square. And the plan is want to make a fabric fence. But I also discussed with the Global Fund team just an hour ago. So we will also produce something that I will discuss with GFAN AP. So with Rachel after this, because we want to produce something that unique from the pattern, and we will produce by the survivor. So yeah, that is the activity that we will doing in near coming days, or maybe a month after this. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Annie. And I concur with Quentin's comment in the chat. I don't
Yeah.
think I saw the pattern when we were in Ottawa, but it is gorgeous. So congratulations on that work. But what a powerful story. So thank you for sharing that as well. So I look forward to you having that conversation with Rachel. What we could support further. So let me then move on to our next invitee, Ika Novianti, to share with us. Ika is from Youth League. She's currently also in Indonesia. And thank you for joining us, Ika. Over to you to share with us reflection updates and thoughts around implications for our region based on what we discussed. Thanks. Ika?
Thank you, Jennifer. Actually, I don't have like much to say since Quentin already touched base on the key discussion during our meeting in Ottawa. And congratulations for Annie with the gorgeous design of your fabric. It's really beautiful. Yeah, so in our recent discussion in Ottawa, as Quentin highlighted, we reflected on the current funding landscape and the evolving strategy of the Global Fund. Personally, I think there is a shift toward more target for the aid replenishment. So it's more targeted, quieter donor engagement, and I feel like as a community, we still like it is important for us to support and also adapting our support accordingly for the aid replenishment. During the meeting also, we had opportunity to discuss in preparation for the recent Global Fund board meeting. We think it's a crucial for us as community to keep voicing the voice from community in the region, right? And also from the global. And also it's crucial that the Global Fund continue to uphold its commitment to putting communities at the center of its strategies. As part of Youth Lead and also Seven Alliance, I will committed to work closely with the GFAN Asia Pacific in the lead up the eighth replenishment and beyond. Our goal is to ensure, sustain, and increase funding for community and civil society in the region. We're not quite sure how to do that, but I think we can do that if we are working together. Just part of the accountability, I will also be joining GFAN AP at APEC for the Community Summit, where we'll continue our discussion and advocating for our priorities. I think that's all from my side. Over to you, Jen.
Great. Thank you so much, Ika, for those updates and sharing. And we look forward to our continuing partnership as well with Youthly. So let me next invite Masaki Naba from the Africa Japan Forum. Masaki?
Thank you very much.
Down.
Thank you very much. I attended the GFAN global meeting and in Ottawa, and it was very much impressive that Ottawa is very cold and snowing some days, and so that it was very much how to say, my image is that Ottawa it was very cold, and during attending the GFAN meeting, I remember the many challenges of the global fund which had faced in its history, including the, for example, world financial crisis in 2008 to 11, and also a big reform of the structure of the global fund from 2009 to 2011, and also COVID-19 to 2023. And finally, the current crisis came as almost the timing we had. We have only 5 to 6 years towards the goal of ending HIV, TB, malaria by 2030. This crisis seems to be the worst, but we need to survive together. And it was very good that the strategy meeting and GFAN strategy meeting was held this time with many advocates and friends in the world. And it was very encouraging for me to energize myself to fight to win. On Japan, I will provide some information. Quentin said that the Japan situation is better than other country, but anyway, and we had how to say anyway Japan compared to other traditional donors, Japan's situation is not bad by now, but we are also facing the same challenges with the other countries like Europe or US. The general political atmosphere around its ODA and the diplomatic policy of Japan will be determined by the upper house election in July. So that we need to focus more on the upper house election in July as a civil society in Japan. On Japan, how to say, yeah, I met with many Diet members in April, both ruling and the opposition parties, and they all showed their strong interest on the U.S. closure of USAID and aid suspension and the termination, and the possible impact of AIDS, TB, and malaria in Africa and also Asia and Pacific. So that we would like to raise their interests on this issue and how say they raise their how say that their common sense and their how say that their empathy on the current tragic situation and how say let them mobilize more on the global fund replenishment movement. How say the Japan we set our goal as the 1.08 billion US dollars, which means that 6% of the target shown in the global fund investment case. It is 18 billion US dollars. And we started our national petition campaign with the support of the JTUC Lengo and Japan Trade Union Confederation Lengo. It is to show the support of the workers and the general public of Japan for the global fund, fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. And also, we would like to have a kind of some mobilization in the conference APAC 2025, Asia Pacific AIDS and Co-Infection Conference 2025, and it will be held in Tokyo in June 12 to 14. And we will have some meetings with the ministries and the politicians, and also Ticket 9, which was mentioned by Quentin and also Dr. Kathy. We would like to work together with Asia Pacific and those African colleagues for the mobilization, civil society mobilization for Ticket 9 and to get, to achieve our targets for the AIDS replacement. So over to you, Jen, and it's okay for me to the question and answers. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, Masaki-san. And again, I mean, just to let everybody know, Diet members, as Rachel mentioned in the chat, it's a Japan equivalent of members of parliament. And I think this goes back to an earlier point. I think we're doing a much quieter advocacy engagement this time around, and then trying to engage the parliamentary members more as well for their support through different channels. We do have a few minutes right now for any questions, comments, reactions from colleagues online with us. And I know that Daniel and Kinza are also here with us, and they were both also in Ottawa. In case anybody, neither one of you would like to share your thoughts and reflection as well with the group. Please feel free to raise your hand, or I don't see anything. Danielle,
Yeah,
Candice,
Jane. Okay.
hi.
Yeah, Jane. Sorry. Yeah, it's a lot in my mind for time being. What should I say? Let me start with the situation right now with GC7 that I will coming for the egg replenishment, but I will start to connect to the GC7 situation. With the situation that GC7, that Global Fund already sent the letter to the countries for deferred some of the activities and start to do the reprioritization, which is it will decrease the commitment by the Global Fund, for the remaining budget need to commit until the end of next year. And also we heard from the Global Fund Board meeting last week what it means. What I think need to prioritize also from us once we have time to advocate to the donors right now to November, October or November, because it potentially the replenishment campaign will be moved to October or November. So we still have a lot of not a lot of time. We still have a few months, but look at the GC7 situation. It will impacting a lot of CSO community organization in regional and in the country level or the local. It will stop working. What it means we lose a lot of people with us together to continue this advocacy for egg replenishment. So I think it's good for us also to assess the situation and how we can build the strategy with the limitation of the communities, because the resilience of communities become challenging in the next few months or next year. How we can build the communication, and at least with the limitation of them, the advocacy in the global, in the country level, it can continue, although it will be less frequent, quality, or other thing. That's one thing. The second thing, what I'm thinking, again, looking at the GC7 now, the panic thing is coming in every country right now, because even in the Secretariat of Global Fund, they don't have the clear guidance and what to do in the next step after the later or after the board meeting. So I think it's also important for us to build the strategy and timing, especially appropriate time, because I think in the next 1 or 2 months, a lot of civil society and communities, especially in the country level, it's become so busy to facing the difficulty of negotiation in reducing the budget. So it will be good for us to build the strategy and advocacy plan. It's considering the timing May or June, it's not so appropriate to conduct a lot of things. But it doesn't mean we need to stop. But I think some of the time, May or June, it can be a difficult moment how the civil society and communities to divide it, which one as a priority for them. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Danielle, and always count on Danielle to hit us on the head with the harsh reality. But I think that's a really good segue for us to go into our next topic and discussion and sharing from Rachel. But before I do that, is there any other additional questions or comment? And I do know the question from Aslami in the chat as well, and I'll invite appropriate colleagues to respond to it shortly. But anything about the GFAN annual meeting that was just shared as well? Okay, nothing. So then let me move on to our next topic, which is very closely linked to the comments and sharing from Danielle. Rachel has just returned from the 53rd Global Fund Board meeting. We will be having a specific session to debrief everything on the Global Fund Board meeting next week, Rachel? No. Oh, is this it? Yes? Okay. But for now, well, I'd like to invite her to provide some information or update that came out from the resource mobilization session during the board meeting, and also inviting Rachel or Pauline. Pauline's online with us to address the question that's in the chat about
Sure,
the
I'll come to that in a bit.
private.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jen. Just in the interest of time, apologies, it feels like I'm speeding up. I I think we're just really trying to suck it up and grin and get on with life in a certain way, despite the things that we're facing. My name is Rachel Ong. I'm based in Singapore, currently working remotely in China. And I've just been at the Global Fund Board meeting. I think there are other colleagues that are here that were joining us either virtually or in person. So please add on to what I may have to add very shortly. In essence, I would just like to thank everybody for your time and the amazing energy and resilience that you are showing and demonstrating in such really, really difficult times. I think on one hand, we know that there's so much more that we need to do for the global fund replenishment, but there's also so much more that's happening in country because of what's happening with GC7 that you would have to be involved with. So thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to join us, as well as being engaged in what you are doing with us as partners around the global fund replenishment. So very briefly, a very quick overview of what was discussed and presented by the Global Fund Secretary during the session. And Pauline may have more things to add afterwards. There was a general update that conversions are going well, that we are looking at securing at least 2 billion out of that 18 billion from private sector and foundations. There was a lot of conversations from members of the board around how they can engage more effectively around this and how they can work more closely with the private sector and foundations constituency. And just to address the question that was asked in the chat, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation does, to a certain extent, would require us to give them more affirmation, but just to say that they are already a really strong advocate and supporter of the Global Fund. So what we really need to do at the country level, at the regional level, and at the global level is actually demonstrating that the other philanthropic organizations need to do more. Masaki mentioned a little bit about TCAD that's happening in Tokyo in August. We're working with the Gates Foundation as well as with GFAN Africa, which is both Anglophone and Francophone Africa, to actually develop a philanthropic session that we hope will get funded. It's still up in the air, that we would look at a longer term way of engaging philanthropic organizations in not only in the Global Fund, but across the global health institutions, but definitely focusing more on the Global Fund at this very, very pivotal moment. So just answering that question. I will be showing you just a presentation that was shown on during the board meeting, but also being very clear that everything is a moving target at this point of time. There are things that are still being firmed down, things that are still being shaped. So please note that this is work in progress, and this is not a definite timeline. So just giving a very quick overview is that the 8th replenishment investment case was launched in February. They're looking at having a final pledge outcome announcement, pledging a moment or sometime towards the end of October, November. Rather than actually having one big conference where all the donors will come together, what we are trying to do collectively as a partnership, the Global Fund Secretary and all the NGOs and civil society and communities are looking at key moments where countries can announce their pledges earlier. That gives us two great opportunities, right? So if the number is small, we can push for more leading up to the 8th replenishment final culmination, or it can give us more strategies to be able to push other donors in putting in more. So it's not always a lose-lose situation in that sense. So next week, there is the World Health Assembly that's coming up. There are many things that are happening in June at the moment. There is the big TCAT moment happening in August. We are looking at working with our colleagues in South Korea around the APEC, which is coming up sometime in September, October. There will be the World Health Assembly that's happening in Berlin. And you can see that there's the EU-AU summit that's happening in October. There are many things that are happening in the calendar in November as well. So this is generally a timeline of events that's happening. But just to also add that the Global Fund Secretariat's way of working in terms of the campaigning, as mentioned by many of our previous speakers, is very, very targeted. And this is also GFAN AP's approach. All our conversations with donors will be very, very specifically targeted. We're also working, we understand the Global Fund Secretary is also developing a range of campaign assets that will tell the story of the value add of the Global Fund. So around global health security, as what I would like to call it, actually global health solidarity, looking at return of investments, being able to showcase that, you know, the Global Fund has been able to invest or push towards global public good that the Global Fund achieves. So looking at all the relevant arguments for different donors and very specific narratives. So the Global Fund is actually looking at the G20 as the final deadline for pledges for allocations. And we are definitely going to be working with the Global Fund Secretary, which is very aware of all the risks that are involved related to replenishment and being able to leverage every single event that's on this timeline to secure earlier pledges for for grant cycle 8. So Ani has shared a little bit about that amazing piece of fabric that will be telling the story from the perspectives of Asia Pacific, as well as her personal story, very similar to the African story and fabric that is shared by our colleague Sibu. We urge people to also have a look at that story, which is also available on the Global Fund website. So every single life that the Global Fund has saved or impacted is being crafted or being able to showcase into something a little bit more personal for donors. There were several discussions that were shared around the board table after the Global Fund presentations, where there was a lot of support from members around the table. I just want to add personally, and this has been something that was said by different donors or from other colleagues, that this is not a Global Fund replenishment crisis. This is really a donors crisis. The donors are the ones that are not getting their act together. I need to be a bit careful. This is going online afterwards, but this is essentially a donors crisis, and I really do feel that our position or our position right now would be actually to support them in being able to work with us more effectively together, looking forward in terms of being able to save more lives, being able to be more ambitious, being able to not go back on the momentum that we've gained so far, and to be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think in essence, this was something that's that was actually the sentiment from the replenishment session. There was also sentiments from various donors around the table that they are looking for different donors to actually step up and pledge earlier as well. But there was also some conversations and reflections from donors that are, and I find the term interesting, which is self-reliance. So one of the terms that's being encouraged by some donors is looking at equal partnerships, moving away from the donor and recipient mentality. And now that there's also the new term that's looking at donor for implementing countries to be even more self-reliant. So this is the general update. I'll stop there and see whether Pauline would have anything else that she'd like to add, or Amina, who was also with us at the board meeting.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. And so yeah, I had a few points that had, but you covered quite some really well. So I can be like very quick, just to reemphasize that you've been saying, but I will just like repeat it, and in other words, but this replenishment is completely different than any replenishment before. Not only because it's going to be like a very difficult one, but also in the spirit and the approach. First of all, I mean, and as you could see, I mean, this spirit of like equal partnership is also reflected in this format of co-hosting. So we have South Africa and the UK as co-host. In the past, we had like the last two replenishment, we had implementing country hosting the preparatory meeting, but really this time it's like they were both co-hosting the investment case launch, and they will be both co-hosting at the same level the partnership, I mean the replenishment process throughout, getting us to the pledging. but getting us, sorry, to the culmination moment. And again, we are in a different format. We don't have a pledging conference, which was like the big culmination point where we would have most of the pledges there, as we had in the past. Given the volatility and the geopolitical context, it's very important to have like multiple pledging opportunity, multiple moments, and that fits also with this like tailored approach to donors. So all these pledges or these like dates in red that you saw on the timeline that Rachel just showed are all these like dates and opportunity that we see as, you know, those moments where we will capitalize on for these announcement of pledges, with a note that this again super volatile and always moving. And actually, since I was speaking with my colleagues, like since we showed that slide, it was on Friday, no, so Thursday, Friday. These still like there are some adjustments still, just to tell you the level of volatility, you know, how things are really changing all the time. But so very agile, very volatile, and that's why it's so important to work very closely with our advocates, and that's what, you know, we will continue to do. Indeed, also, I mean, as a different approach, again, underlining that, you know, in the past we had this like, you know, one-line approach with a global campaign. This time we have more like targeting campaign with targeted messages. Yeah, you covered the rest. I mean, on the board, yes, very complex discussions. And just to tell you, I mean, this had been announced to the board. In general, the Global Fund Secretariat issue a communication, you know, the kind of like press release with a summary of the outcome. In general, it's immediately after the closing. This time it took a few days. That was announced that would take a few days, and it should be sent out in a few hours, and we will also share it through GFAN. So that is coming. And then also, I mean, there were all these questions about the Gates Foundation. Yes, we are in constant, you know, we work very closely with the Gates Foundation, constant discussion with the Gates Foundation. So yes, we hope we hope for an increase, and we're working on that. Yes, I mean, I think that's all the points I wanted to, you know, without going too far, I mean, and too long, the points I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Pauline and Rachel. I think, yeah, everything it's evolving and changing, and I think we just need to all be keeping each other updated and be doing things together and being supportive. We have a few minutes left. Is there any questions or comments from the group at this point? Otherwise, just a couple of plugs from my side. I mean, Rachel mentioned about the term currently that's going out on about self-reliance. I think for those.
Jen?
Yes, Danielle, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm thinking in the situation of the global health crisis, that's the commitment of the donor for the ODA, it's decreasing. But I'm thinking there is still the opportunity. I don't know what Pauline thought about this. I will raise about a lot of donors still continue to give the bilateral donation or funding to many countries, poor or development. Yeah, a lot of countries in Asia and Africa. I'm thinking this is one of the opportunity to approach them, like Gates just give Indonesia 115 million last week, or maybe other private sector or other donors, Australia, Germany, or whoever the donors, they still support some country bilateral. So how this is become the opportunity of Global Fund in the Secretariat to influencing them to change the approach from the bilateral through the global fund mechanism. How do you think, Pauline, look at this opportunity?
Thanks, Daniel. Is that for Pauline to respond? Then Pauline, go ahead.
No, I mean, I get you. I see. Not sure I get all the elements, but I mean the bilateral. I mean, we always had. I mean, like, many countries both have some bilateral aid and some multilateral aid. And so this has been done in parallel, right? And there's a whole debate about bilateral versus multilateral. We saw, I mean, you saw, I mean, there are some advantages, but you also saw some challenges and limitation, and so I don't know. I mean, like for Australia, I mean, like you mean that some on some urgent, like emergency aid, or because it's you know, we always had this like debate in past replenishment. We have it in the next replenishment, but in general, when you look at the ODA budget, it's a zero-sum game, right? So I'm not sure I get your question, Daniel, or perhaps that's the, you know, the topic of a future discussion.
Great, thank you so much, Pauline. And maybe Daniel, we can, Rachel, anything you'd like to add to Daniel's comment?
I think what Daniel is saying is something that is that points out to something which is in the comprehensive funding policy of the Global Fund. So the bilateral aid is one thing because countries will want to specifically fund some countries or work with some countries around certain aspects. The beauty of the Global Fund is that money that goes to the Global Fund goes to a general big pot. So there are no specific, except for some exceptions from the private sector. The donors generally will have to give money that goes in the general pot, which is then allocated across to countries based on the allocation methodology, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this is a conversation that we will need to have in the longer term. But thanks, Daniel, for pointing it out. I just want to stress that there were also some conversations that we've been having in the last innovative financing call that looks at other sources of funding that countries can engage in, not and I think this is something that can also be done with the support of the Global Fund, for example, regarding debt swaps, for example, even around social impact bonds, universal health coverage, for example, as what some countries in our region have done, including Vietnam. So there are many potential possibilities of how we can engage in some of these resource mobilization activities, notwithstanding what's happening with the Global Fund or with the donor withdrawal landscape. Trying to keep my head above the water at this point and looking at things in a more positive lens. But that's something that we definitely should have more of a conversation going forward. That because we are very cognizant of the impacts on communities and civil society. So definitely we'll be looking at how this will be impacting strategic initiatives, for example. So over to you, Jen.
Thanks, Rachel. And I think that on that note, and then I've dropped it in the chat box as well, we have a different series of webinars, especially on innovative financing. I think that's a space that we could also further discuss. Do look out for our next call to get more additional updates on key discussions coming out from the Global Fund Board meeting and implication for the GC7 and GC8 replenishment. Otherwise, there's nothing else from my end to add. Rachel, any last closing words? If not, thank you so much, everyone, again, for joining us. The recording of this will be available on our social media, on our webpage, but do join us for our upcoming calls in the next few weeks. And I think it's going to require all of us continue coming together, having this discussion and strategizing on what we could do and what we should be doing collectively in support of the Global Fund, but also in support of the broader issue of how we finance health in all our country and in our region. So on that note, I'd like to close the webinar for today. Thank you all so much again for joining us, and see you all again at our next call. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Everyone, thank you. Bye.